Well, welcome to part 2 of this 4-part series chronicling my build of the HMS Victory by Airfix. In this part we'll be finishing off the deck, building the masts and putting on the shrouds. So these are the hammock netting photo etch pieces which I've painted white and I'm now going to put the details on with these two paint pens. This one is the particularly fine nib. So I'm using the thicker nib to paint the middle of the hammock netting black. The masking gives us a nice straight line. And the thin nib is then used for the stanchions, the little supports. Cutting out the photo etch pieces from the fret like usual. And filing down the burrs. Putting the hammock netting into the photo etch vise to bend it into shape. There it is, ready to go, and placing it on the side of the deck there. Now, I didn't use the gallery photo etched for the glass at the back of the ship, but I am using the pieces to create little pieces of railing to cover the gaps that exist between the various parts of the hammock netting. It's important to remember which way around the hammock netting goes. One side is less finished than the other, that's the inside. So here that's the inside there, and that's the outside. Inside, outside, inside, outside. So I'm bending the two inside sections of the netting towards each other. This is the railing that goes along the deck. You see the little feet there? They point inwards towards the deck. Glue the railing onto the hammock netting. There were holes on the deck for that railing, but I filled them in so that I can put the railing much closer to the other part of the deck there, flush with it. And the hammock netting in this case hangs over the side of the ship. You can see it more clearly on this side. There's the feet pointing in and the railing going up against the side of the deck there. You can see the hammock netting on the poop deck there, and I'm putting in more of the railing. The bow is now to the left of the screen, and I'm putting on the hammock netting near to the bow. Again, this hangs over the side. I just use PVA glue to stick it. and there's another gap which has to be filled. Now doing this means a little gap appears, as you can see there, so it needs to be filled. I just use a small piece of black polythene, just cut and then popped in there. You can see the one on the left there, all done. The one on the right still drying. And then finishing off the hammock netting right at the bow of the ship. I'm putting on hammock netting which goes across the deck now. This is at the front of the poop deck. And here just by the opening to the lower deck. Putting in some more cannons. And here's all the hammock netting in place. There on the poop deck, across the poop deck, along the main part of the deck, across the deck, hanging over the side of the deck, and through the magic of video we can add the rowboats. Carry on down. Getting to the hammock netting on the forecastle. Here's the bow with the figurehead in place and the bow netting there with the rods pointing through. Moving on to the masts, be aware that the number for one of the pieces, 168, appears upside down on the sprue, making it hard to find. This is called the top. It's the platforms halfway up the mast. I'm just putting on one of the tops onto one of the masts here. I'm putting on the cross trees, the small platform near the top of the mast. Now I've put on the spars that hold the sails. You will notice no doubt that I pre-paint all the parts. I just find it easier to do that and then touch up any problems that arise with the glue making the paint run. So this is a typical part that you attach the shrouds to. These are the dead eyes, this is the channel, and these are the chains. Make sure that they correspond to where they're meant to go according to the instructions, otherwise you can accidentally put them in the wrong place. So like, don't put it in there as 147 because the dead eyes don't correspond. This is the dead eyes for the top, and notice the detailing on the outside that faces away from the ship, and the plain side faces in towards the mast. These are the photo etched shrouds. That's the actual shroud. Those black dots there are the base that the dead eyes are attached to. That's the outside of the channel. Those are the chains. And those are the dead eyes. Now I only actually use the shroud and the top of the base, and I attach the dead eyes that you get with the model to those. I just find it sturdier. It's now upside down, and they don't quite correspond to the shrouds, so we have to move a few of the dead eyes over there on the left. There's two ways of doing that. One is to bend the dead eyes over into place, as I'm doing here. You might need to pop a bit of glue at the bottom of the dead eye to make sure it stays firm. There we go, they now fit. And I'm removing the shroud from the photo etch fret. I've left a little bit of the fret on many of the photo etched shrouds just to make it easier to attach to the model. And as ever, trimming the burrs. Make sure your tweezers are as close to the edge of the photo etched piece as possible, otherwise the photo edge part could buckle. And this is the other way of making the dead eyes align with the shrouds. It's just to gently bend the ones that are out of alignment into alignment. You're usually going to have to do 2 or 3. And there we have it. Here's the same process for one of the shrouds higher up the mast. And matching pairs will mirror each other. I use CA accelerator sometimes to help with attaching the shrouds using super glue. It's a good idea to check all the holes for the channels to fit in, because often I found the holes were too small for the prongs and needed to be widened. There's another little piece of fret still attached to the photo etch, just to help with anchoring it in place. This one's going from the top up to the cross trees. And here is a little bit of CA accelerator just to finish the job quickly. And there's all the shrouds in place. I'm now cutting out the futtocks. They're an additional piece of rigging which drops down from the top, the platform on the masts, onto the shrouds. I leave a piece of the fret on again and bend it in the vise. Attach it to the top down to the shroud, and there they all are in place. So that ends part 2. In part 3 we'll be attaching the cannons plus doing the sails and the rigging. See you then.